Hey, yeah, what's up? This is Disciple Marshall Occurrence Rain back up in this anti-Illuminati all day, anti-telepathy all day, anti-America all day, and everybody with them, yeah. So, what I want to talk about is wealth, money, and what does that make us? It makes us rich, right? That's about it, right? It's a lot of suckers that got money. Let's just keep it 100. It's a lot of suckers that got money. And it's easy to hide behind it, and people don't see the sucker because they too busy reaching in your pockets. They too busy trying to get something from you. Okay? Money doesn't define a man, but a man can define his money. Okay? Sometimes your money ain't good at certain places because you have defined your money. And sometimes you ain't got enough of it, but you have defined your money and it got you where you needed to go. I'm tired of people acting like, especially with the young generation, that when you get money, this means you real. And when I say real, I'm talking about the thug image, the shoot 'em up image, this, that, and the third. But anybody can get money. You can inherit money. You know how many suckers done got out there and done inherit some money. You know you ain't work for it. And no by any means at all. But yet you walking around like you a baller and hustling, like you sold weight to get it. Now he got tattoos all on his neck and face. Because he done inherited some money and now people thinking he hustled to get that money. So that money did not make him a thug. So what happens in our community is people get this money and now you are the thug of thugs. You the gangster of gangsters. Because now you can pull strings and you can put money on people's head. You can do all these things. But you didn't get money that way. You didn't get money actually. The money you have, putting money on people's head. You're just doing it now just like some rich white guy. But you're holding the persona like you got all of that money from literally the dope game and the street game. And you didn't. And you got to keep it 100 about that. So while they're walking around, these rich guys walking around, they're no like that money means you sold 1,000,000 keys. That's not what that money is. And that you can pull a string with gangsters, well, you're doing nothing more different than these white guys do. And they cornballs. And they suckers. We can't let money make a person all things to everybody. You don't got to be a smart. Also, you don't. Just because you have money doesn't mean you're a smart person. You do. Money doesn't make you smart. It's good you got it, but you're not necessarily smart. You're not necessarily a person of morals. You're not necessarily a spiritual person. You're not necessarily anything but a person that literally has money. We have to keep it 100 about this. We got to keep this 100 because what has happened in our community is we esteem people that have the most money as the greatest. That's what we do. I guarantee you the things I even talk about and say and I put on my Facebook if somebody that was famous and rich said it, it would start an avalanche in the community. But because they don't see me with money and cars, they don't listen to what you got to say. But Malcolm X didn't have no money. Martin Luther King Jr. had no significant money. They was the greatest leaders. They're greater than Jay-Z. Malcolm X is greater than Jay-Z. Martin Luther King Jr. is greater than Jay-Z. So does money really define an individual? It does not. It does not define an individual. Jay-Z got his money from rapping. Now he act like he the thug of thugs. Okay, you got a little street rap when you was young. But you was that story. They act like it was such a gangster story. It wasn't such a gangster story. He just made the most money. He just made the most money, and now you're trying to look at that as it's almost like subconsciously people are saying, well, he got all that money from selling weight. Jay-Z didn't get all that money from selling dope. So he is not a successful dope dealer. He is not a drug lord. But you treat him like he's a drug lord. That's not drug lord money. Those are ticket money. That's money from shows. That's money from white fans. People don't even live in the hood. Nah, I gotta do this because y'all be putting this Nino Brown image on that guy, and that guy didn't even sell weight like that, where he's getting millions and hundreds of millions of dollars. That ain't how he got that money. He ain't even get all that money from just even rapping. But you put the image of thug drug lord. This is what the culture do. It's not maybe it's not always his fault. But that's what you do in your community. Like he's the drug lord Nino Brown guy. But bruh, you got that money from tickets. You got that money from white people buying your music. And the first thing people want to say, oh, you being the mad rapper. I'm not being the mad rapper. I know all the things y'all think, how y'all think. I'm not being the mad rapper. I'm looking at it like, okay, man, let's keep it 100. What image are you really, what energy is you carrying? Is you acting like you was the person with the weight, like you the person that you got all of this from weight, from selling weight? Yeah, define it for us. Make it clear, make it plain. Make it plain to these people. You had a little story. How long was Jay-Z selling dope? Let's be 100. 10 years? How long was Jay-Z selling dope? Let's talk about it. Let's keep it 100. So Jay-Z started out selling dope at, okay, let's say 16. Let's say 16. Let's just say 16. He got in the rap game, 20 something, 25, 26? So he only did 10 years selling dope. But yet the story is like he's the Nino Brown. But bruh, you probably weren't even selling dope 10 years straight. It's just time for American culture, especially with rappers. Man, it's time for Americans, period, man, to like bring things down to reality. When you got guys that act like they was the Nino Browns of the neighborhood. You notice I don't never say that? You notice you ain't never seen me say that. All I said, I have sold crack. I'm showing you my mentality. The mentality matters to me more. The mentality I have. That tells you more about who I am. It defines more instead of how much did I sell. Because we all have never sold the same amount of dope. So who's real? Who's the realest? Is it based off of, well, you sold one more key to me, so you're realer than me? Because what happens is dope selling starts to be the equivalent of the guy being the killer and the threat and the gangster. But you just was selling dope. There's some good people that sell dope that never pull guns. There's some people that sell, some families that sell big weight, but they ain't never killed nobody. They are not out there in them streets like gangsters. They are just selling a product. But what happens in the hip hop community, because it's so easy to throw threats around and this and that people take the dope selling as like, now you a gangster threat. You this big gangster threat. And what really you've become is just like a white guy that's able to take money and put it on people's head. You really didn't work up to being that guy from the streets. You worked up from being that guy from selling tickets. Now you're trying to transfer that power and strength over to now being back to the street guy with a little reputation. Now you're trying to put that crown on that guy when he just stopped selling dope and became the rapper. So I have more respect for people that never left the hood, that always been hustling their whole life, that didn't get no opportunities to be no rapper. We make these rappers, let's keep it 100. We make these rappers bigger gangsters than they really are. We make these rappers bigger gangsters than they really are. And most people would tell you this. From the streets don't talk about nothing. We don't want you to hear you rapping about what we doing. We don't want to hear you rapping about the crack that you sold with us. That part, bruh. Well, nah. That's the real streets. Like I don't know no better. The real streets ain't rapping, bruh. And that's what I always say. The realest dude is, you may never know him. You may never know the realest dude ever. Because he doesn't want to be known. He doesn't want no fame. Okay? Now, even when it comes to making money, esteeming someone as a person of importance in this country, as far as even character, even, like I said, respecting what they say and everything, it always comes back to how much money they making. So you don't respect somebody unless you know they're making a certain amount of money, until you see they're making a certain amount of money. So the people that really could really help the country as far as changing the people, they're kept low without money, so they don't have any influence. Now you don't really listen and care because they don't got no money. And you feel that if they were that important, why they don't have any money? Martin Luther King Jr. didn't have no money. And he still is the greatest leader in your country. Malcolm X didn't have any money, and he still is one of the greatest leaders now. You still don't have nobody that's that great. You still don't. And they didn't have any money. They didn't have any money at all. Not really. Not really. When you can see that Martin Luther King Jr., you see that Lorraine motel he was at, that show you he ain't had no money. That would have never happened if he was in a suite. And that's another thing. It shows us that black people, they're not quick to rally around the right people and put money behind the right people. Because if he wouldn't have been at that rinky-dink motel, and he would have been at a better suite that's fit for these white people, then they wouldn't even have the opportunity to shoot him on no balcony. That was the equivalent of a Holiday Inn, a Days Inn. That motel that he was shot at, that was the equivalent of a Days Inn. If not even, it wasn't even a major change, so it was lower than that. So imagine that. That's lower than a Motel 6. Why is the man of God in a Motel 6? This shows us right here. I'm showing you right here. I'm not joking. This shows you right here how even then, black people was not even behind the leaders like they should have been. Nah, man, nah. That some money could have got together, and they could have put a whole bunch of money together and got that man a room, a suite. I know it hurts, but it's the truth. And we could have still had him if he was better financed. You don't leave your kings, and I'm gonna do a video on this too. Raising up a king, understanding how to raise up a king. You don't leave your kings vulnerable like that. The white man ain't gonna tell you nothing. He gonna let you slip like that. And you acting like you can do the best you can, like you just put him in the barn in the manger like he's like Jesus. That's the first thing you want to think. Well, it's a humble beginning, but it's like Jesus in the barn, in the manger. That's what you thinking. I know how you think, man. I'm American. I know how you think. I used to be. At least I used to be American. So I know how you think. You don't leave kings vulnerable like that. Let's talk about it. You're financing people with no intellectual property that's going to benefit your neighborhoods. Got no intellectual property that's changing your community. And then Martin Luther King has one speech, and the intellectual property, the intellectual property value of that is almost priceless. Then you got people make a whole album and the intellectual property is nothing. It's not worth anything intellectually value-wise. Yeah, you didn't think I knew about intellectual property, did you? So you know, money, that's all y'all look at. Okay, that's all y'all look at, and y'all define people by that, and y'all make them everything. And I can't stress enough, your greatest leaders, especially from the black community, didn't have any money. You love Bob Marley more than any other musician. Even Jay-Z respects Bob Marley. But Bob Marley didn't have hundreds of millions of dollars. But he's greater than all these rappers combined. You still get more out of his music than any of the other stuff that's out here. I found Bob Marley's music in a time where after I lost my grandmother, and I had never seriously listened to his music. I probably heard it off afar, probably, honestly, to be real with you, I probably heard it just like on TV, things like that. Then I had a girlfriend that I was living with that was a DJ, so she had all kind of music from her DJ times. So she had Bob Marley. And so I played, when I lost my grandmother, I was in just an empty place, like a place, or just an empty place is the best way to say it. And I listened to Bob Marley music, and it brought me back closer to God. For real. I guess I took what I took from it. It just got me back aligned with God. I used that to get me back aligned with God. That's intellectual property and value. That's a valuable person. You know what I'm saying? He put forth intellectual property that was extremely valuable, almost priceless. So throughout history, the pattern has been, I say all that to say this, the most valuable people were not rich. Jesus Christ, I could go on and on. Gandhi, Nelson Mandela. I can go on and on. I can do this all day, showing you how really there's never been really valuable people that's rich. Because most of them somehow compromise the overall purpose for humanity in order to make that money. They compromise the overall purpose to make humanity healthier. They're making a lot of money, but they're making humanity unhealthy. You know what I'm saying? So therefore, they don't become, when the smoke clears, the dust clears, they don't become the ones that you feel are the best. That's what I'm trying to show you. See, this comes with being on top. James Brown was very valuable. Again, he was not really a rich man. He did not have hundreds of millions of dollars. I don't think so. James Brown influenced Prince, Michael Jackson. I could go on and on and on who James Brown influenced. And he gave soul, rhythm and soul to the African American community. Yet he is not someone you would look to and say, as far as his legacy, that he was rich. That's not something necessarily you would say about James Brown. So I think we've been making mistakes. Because all the people that were the most valuable was never rich. None of them. I can't see in history one rich, valuable person. That's like way up there as far as the greats. They all got money, but how valuable are they? In other words, if I stripped all your money away and put you in the woods with your tribe, with the African American community, how much of an asset would you be to them? And we took all the money away. We put everybody in the woods, and we could just only go off of spiritual caliber and intellectual caliber. What would you be? What would they be to their tribe? Based off of their spiritual caliber, their intellectual caliber. What would they be? What would they be as far as their spiritual caliber and their intellectual caliber if they were stripped of everything? That's what I'm saying. Now you got to speak up. Now you got to make yourself valuable off of what you are valued now off of your intellect and your spiritual caliber, if you will. And in all reality, this is what still defines man anyway. Not how much money you got. What about your intellectual property? What about your spiritual property, if you will? You're responsible for that. You can increase your intellectual property and the value thereof, and the same thing with the spiritual property and the value thereof. You can increase both of them. But people don't do this. And that's why we don't have any leaders on the caliber of Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X, and we still on YouTube watching their videos. You don't have anybody progressive. You know what I'm saying? And this is why we are where we are. See, it's beneficial for white America, the racist part that you don't want to accept that are still there. It's beneficial that you don't have anybody like that. It's beneficial for them. Because you can be controlled and you can just become the consumer instead of the competition. So you're maintained as a consumer. Besides race, let's look at it besides race. Now you're looked at You're defeated. You're being held back because you could be a potential business competition. How? Ah, come on now. You know there's more than one reason for all this foolishness. Now black people being held back because they don't want you to be the competition. Not necessarily because you black. Hey, you taking out my pocket, partner. You gotta look at that. So you don't have no leaders that teach you, groom you, grow you, and flourish you to where you're a competition against established America. You were the ones that had the potential to be the competition for established America. It is Black America. You were the ones with all the potential to be the competition against the established American empire, and you could have started your own African American empire. And that's what they really don't want you to know. You didn't have to join them. That's all they do. They make you join their empire. They make you join their cause. And you never make your own empire and your own cause. So when you become wealthy and rich in America, you just join the white American culture and white American movement. It's business-wise. Meanwhile, like I said, as far as importance, the best people were not rich in this country.